I always think of the wives of politicians. Looking back, can you speak to your wife, Ginger's support, sacrifice, and strength?
She, yeah, there's a great story behind this, a very funny story. She's a great lady, but she never really was involved in politics. For example, since I never had an opponent, she didn't have to be, okay? And as a state senator, there were occasions when she would be involved at some function, but they were pretty rare, and they weren't very difficult. And then when I ran for AG, I also didn't have an opponent. So she was busy at home raising kids and taking care of the house. Well, when I was elected AG, we bought a condominium in Little Rock. So I didn't have to drive back and forth every day to Searcy. I'd just come home on the weekends and stayed in Little Rock during the week. So fast forward, I'm elected governor. We don't need the condominium because we're going to move in the mansion. So we sold it. And so we're having a brunch the day before the inauguration. So this is like January 6th or 7th, something like that. And we're having a brunch for down in Trapnell Hall for all of the volunteers and campaign staff that worked so hard. And I get a phone call. Ginger's at the condominium packing up stuff because we need to get it out of there since we sold it. And so I get a call from, I think Stacy was the one that called. But at any rate, somebody's there with her helping her pack up, and I get this call at this brunch. Said, "You need to get over here right away." Ginger's in the floor crying. And I said, "Oh gosh!" So the enormity of what was about to happen in changing her life as first lady had obviously hit her. So I jumped in the car, left Trapnell Hall, drove to the condominium, and looked at her. And I said, "Now, you've known this is coming." I said, "Well, why now? Why are you so upset?" And she looked at me and she said, "I didn't think you'd win." So, I mean.
Oh, the nice vote of confidence from your wife.
She'll bring you home.
Yeah, she will.
But, you're talking about being popular. She may be as popular as anybody's ever sat in that first lady's seat, because she opened that mansion up. She thought it was a people's house. She was caring and kind. And
Governor Beebe, your approval rating never slipped below 70% in all your years as governor. Your crossover appeal had to make you a much talked about candidate for the presidential elections. Did you consider it?
No. And I never considered a Senate race. The progression had always been Congress, governor, Senate. And there was some pressure for me to run for the Senate. In fact, there was a poll that I think U of A did that came out like in October before I left office that had me with a 14-point lead over the incumbent senator. But I never had a desire to go to Washington. I did when I was young, didn't know any better, but it had gotten so poisonous up there. I don't know that there was a better job politically in the world than being governor. And so I was ready to come home. I was ready to relax a little bit. And so I never considered that. Interestingly enough, I don't know where these people come up with this stuff, but there's a deal on YouTube that somebody had put on there. I've never been able to figure out who it was. It's well done. It looks like a real Fox News election night, because they advertised Fox News, but it could have been any network election night with me and Trump in 2020. And they go through each state. And it's pretty realistic how the polls have now closed in state X and state Y. And
we'll have to go look for that.
Yeah, well, it's if you went to YouTube and you hit my name, then there's 50 jillion entries, but one of them is me and Trump. And you walk through it, and it's like a real election night.
Funny. So what do you think about politics today? You were right about it. It's gotten to be dirty politics.
It's sad. It's sad that we've gotten so polarized. And I'm talking about both parties, the extreme left and the extreme right. And part of it's the legislature's fault, and not just Arkansas legislature, the entire country's, all 50 state legislatures. And the reason I say that is what happens with the decennial census every 10 years when we do a census, then congressional House districts are redistricted, but they're redistricted by the state legislatures. So, for example, Arkansas state legislature redistricts our congressional boundary lines. And what these legislatures have done across this country is created real safe Democratic seats and real safe Republican seats, so that there's not much in the middle. So that when these people are running for the House, they're in Washington, they're not worried about the November election. There's either going to be a Republican because it's a Republican skewed district, or they're going to be a Democrat because it's a Democratic skewed district. So when they're running, they're afraid of their own people in their own primary. So Republicans run farther to the right, the Democrats run farther to the left, and when they get elected, there has not been anything in the middle. There's not been any desire to run toward the middle, and so there's no way to want to cross over and work with the other party, and it's polarized to the point that they don't even talk to each other. They don't like each other. They don't get along with each other.
You think
and
the pendulum?
Counterproductive.
You think the pendulum will swing back the old way?
Ultimately, the beauty of this country is people are boss, and when they get fed up enough, they'll fix it. When they get tired enough of this extreme partisanship, they'll start voting for folks that don't exhibit that extreme partisanship. Ultimately, it'll swing back. I don't know when, but I'm an eternal optimist, and I have faith in the American electorate. I have faith in the American people, and I think ultimately, when they get peed off enough about it, they'll demand change.
Last question. Now that you're no longer running for office, we can talk candidly about anything, I think. I read where you said you'd done more than 700 pardons of mostly nonviolent offenders. And thank goodness in 2014, you pardoned your son from a 2003 felony drug possession conviction. Your son did 9 years, I think, for marijuana that is now legal. And I imagine you learned a lot during that time. What did
Yeah, he did. He got more punishment than he would have gotten if he'd not been my son.
Yes.
Now they didn't send him to jail or to prison because they weren't sending first offender marijuana folks, but they put him on probation for 3 years or something like that. And then I had granted all those. I rarely granted commutations. Very rare, shortening people's sentence. But I was real liberal about granting pardons for folks that had already completed their sentence or their probation and paid their fines and whatever they're supposed to do, if some period of time had elapsed and they hadn't reoffended. Because particularly nonviolent and particularly young people that were convicted of drugs, because I thought they deserve a second chance. And so I'm now faced with a lot of criticism for doing that for my son when I did it for everybody else. Why would I treat him worse? I can understand not treating him better. People wouldn't like that.
Well, your wife would, but then you have problems at home if you don't treat him better.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But he deserved what everybody else deserved.
That's right.
And a lot of people raised Cain about it, but I wasn't going to treat him worse than everybody else. And one of the most heart-wrenching things that happened to me was a lady drove 100 miles at an event one night where I was speaking out in the open in the cold when Arkadelphia had done their scholarship deal, much like El Dorado had done. And it was so big, so many people there, they had to do it outside on the football field. And it was cold winter time, and I already had a cold. And of course, everybody had to speak, and I'm the last to speak. And so I'm ready to get back to the car. And so I'm walking back to the car, and this lady's wrapped up, and she'd been standing there throughout that cold, young woman. And she said she drove 100 miles to thank me for her husband, who couldn't get off work. He was working, supporting a family, but wanted to thank me for his pardon. that you never forget that.
That just almost brings tears to my eyes. That's a wonderful story. Has it been hard to let go?
No, it's been hard to let go of the people. I love the job. I don't remember bad days. I'm sure I had bad days. You remember mostly the good days, but I don't miss all that. But what I do miss, and what is hard to let go, are the huge number of people, not just your staff, not just the troopers who become part of your family, but the friends, the supporters, the folks that you used to see once or twice a week or three or four times a month. Now you may not even see them all year. That's what I miss.
And you don't get to solve problems. It's the solving problems part that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I was in the Senate, the most enjoyable time I had was constituency work, when you knocked a wall down to get somebody something they deserve. Now, about half the time people were asking for stuff they didn't deserve. And you have to be able to winnow those out, people asking for stuff that was ridiculous or that wasn't appropriate. But about half the time they were folks that were just caught up in a system that nobody was listening to them. And, being able to pick the phone up and call an agency head or call a department or call somebody and get relief for somebody that truly deserved it was probably the most rewarding part of being a senator. And
working together in groups to solve problems and to get things done is just so gratifying. I think if I ever quit working, that's the part I would miss the most.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The gratification you get from being able to solve a problem is pretty special.
Thank you, Governor, for all your service.
It's my pleasure.
For all you've done for all of us, for being smart, figuring out all that Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act. That was complex.
No kidding.
That was good, though. That was really, really good. Thanks for being a great example.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. In closing, Paul, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the picture of Kerry's face in the center of the screen. To watch the full-length interview, click the video in the top right. For more interview highlights, click the video in the bottom right. Thank you for watching.